And even when I first had my daughter, if you had put a gun to my head and said, you're going to spend the rest of your life working with mothers, like you're going to be in the momosphere, I would have laughed in your face. Like, there's no way.
What is up, my beautiful people? Welcome to the Trip Sitting Podcast, where we explore what it means to be human. I am your host, Cam Leeds. On this week, we have Tracey T, who is the founder of Moms on Mushrooms. She has been on local news. She has been on national news. She's been on Dr. Phil. And now she has been on the Trip Sitting Podcast. Thank you, Tracey. Before we start, this episode is sponsored by Mushmore. Mushmore is a community that empowers its members through the power of microdosing and education surrounding that microdosing. So they don't just have amazing products, they have a whole community that you can join through Telegram and really just tap into that community. And there's a lot of healing that's done of connecting with people there and hearing each other's stories. So be sure to check out Mushmore, join their Telegram. There's the link in the footnotes of this podcast. You will not regret it, and maybe you could even get some cool products. And if you're looking to macro as well, maybe they got something for you. We'll see. Before we start officially, to make sure that you are following the Trip Sitting Podcast on whatever podcast platform that you are listening to this on, and if you wouldn't mind, give this a rating so we get in front of more viewers. And be sure that you are following us on Instagram and TikTok at tripsitting.blog. That is all I got before we start. Here is this week's episode. Welcome to the Trip Sitting Podcast. Tracey T of Moms on Mushrooms. And I am your host, Cam Leeds, which is something that I forget to say a lot. But here we are. Thank you so much for inviting me into your beautiful home to record this. We also have a special guest with us, as you can see.
Would really like to introduce JoJo T, the actual founder of Moms on. We're really here for JoJo today.
Of course, yeah. That's who we're supporting here. How long has she been microdosing?
Not long enough, clearly, by how she's been acting this morning.
So I'm trying to think of when I first met you. I think it was really briefly at the MAPS conference. Yeah. And then we just kept bumping into each other
literally
just
everywhere.
all the time, like around here. So, and we live 20 minutes apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that we were able to make this happen in person. This is my third or fourth in-person podcast. So it's hopefully I get more of those, but this is exciting.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of people in Colorado, that's for sure.
That is true. So when did you actually start Moms on Mushrooms? I genuinely have no idea.
It's a good question. There's actually like 3 loose start dates. Okay. So I'll tell you which one I kind of officially count. So the idea came to me in the end of 2021, when I was in the process of winding down my old business. And
what was that?
It was a live comedy show for mothers called the Pump-a-Dum Show.
Okay.
That my best friend, a business partner, and I had for almost 10 years, had built from the ground up. We toured the country. It was very successful. We had a fancy Hollywood agent, all the things. And we had just kind of invested every last red penny that both of our families had into the business to create 2 additional casts, one out of LA and one out of Chicago. We were days away from signing an off-Broadway contract with 2 Tony Award-winning producers. And then the lockdowns happened. And within 2 weeks, we canceled nearly 100 shows for 2021 or 2020. And then continued to pivot. And, which is what led me sort of into microdosing. Was a lot of it was that grief of losing a company I'd worked so hard to build. And then it was also just the next leg of my own spiritual path that I'd been on for many years.
Yeah. How long did you run that company for?
Almost 10 years.
10 years. Okay, got it. So like that was a very good part of your adult life at that point.
Yeah. And it was for moms. Yeah. So I had been in the momosphere since, I started it about 2 years after I'd had my daughter. So when I was just in the throes of new parenthood. So I've been, working and talking with moms and trying to get under the hood of the motherhood zeitgeist and consciousness for a long time. Anyway, so fast forward, pivot, 2020, 2021, can't do the same thing. Had a podcast with Warner Brothers. That wasn't working. Finally, in the end of 2021, my partner and I kind of decided to this isn't working. All the, how many more red flags do we need? I was deep in my medicine work. And then, I can't remember if it was before or after she and I officially decided that we were just going to stop trying. I had MOM, Moms on Mushrooms, in meditation one day, just sort of plopped into my head, this perfect download. And I sat up and I was like, well, that's genius. Obviously somebody else has thought of it. And it was out there.
Yep,
and
nobody else had.
Yeah. And it was obviously, I can't even claim that it was my idea. It really wasn't. And then I was like, but there's no way I'm going to do that. No. And then over that Christmas break, this sort of course in these ideas of how to work with moms, moving from the comedy space where we brought moms together through laughter into something much deeper, with the medicine at the center. I sort of wrote the initial ideas for Mom and started and led a group of 7 women all over the country for free. And I was kind of like, would you want to try this with me? Is she driving you crazy?
We'll figure it out.
Joe, you're ruining the audio. It's not cool. So in January, I low-key started kind of a group course.
January 2021 or
2022.
2020. Okay, got it.
That finished up in March. In March, on the last call, I was crying. They were crying. I was like, I'm going to miss you guys so much. What am I going to do without you? Thank you for, doing this with me. And they all just looked at me across Zoom because it was all over. And they were like, well, we're not going anywhere. What else do you have? So that was kind of my open door for phase 1 of Official Mom, which was, I guess I should start an Instagram account. So that started in March of 2022. Then said best friend and former business partner, life partner, really for me, life wife, took my course as well. And then she finished it in June and was like, we got to go bigger. You need a platform. You need more resources for mothers. You need to broaden your horizons. There needs to be a place where we can all talk. And that led us to create our platform, which is our private platform and our private community. And that launched in August of 2022. So that I would say is the official. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So from the 2 stories that you've told me so far, it sounds like they've both definitely centered around being a mother.
Yeah.
And so what was that experience when you became a mother? How did that change you so much to the point where you've now dedicated your life to helping other moms?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think when I became pregnant, and even when I first had my daughter, if you had put a gun to my head and said, you're going to spend the rest of your life working with mothers, you're going to be in the momosphere, I would have laughed in your face. There's no way. I just never really thought of myself as that kind of person. And I think, I credit Shayna. The show was her idea. And we just sort of stumbled into that as a way to just really keep our brains going and have a creative outlet ourselves. We both come from performing, theater, comedy backgrounds, writing backgrounds. And, when your kids are that young and you have no personal space and no time to yourself, you kind of feel your brain oozing out your ears a little bit because you're not using your adult creativity. And that's very important to Shayna. And she's set such a good example for me in that department. And so the show kind of came from that. And I think we just stumbled onto something at the right place at the right time. It was in 2012 before social media was so intense. I mean, we just put posters up. The first night we did it in a bar for free in Northwest Denver, and like 75 people came.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. And then the next month, like the people were calling in for reservations of like 10 and 15 people. And the bar was like, we're a bar. We don't even take reservations. Where are we putting everyone? So we just really stumbled into something, and then it grew from there. And we just kept pouring our own life experiences into the material. So that's it. And I do think over time, I realized that my own life experiences, I have a long history, and truly since I was probably 16, have had intense medical, like reproductive issues. I had stage 4 endometriosis. I've had a million surgeries. I had a really horrible pregnancy. I had a really hard time getting pregnant. I had an emergency C-section. And so I think just all of those experiences gave me a lot of compassion for mothers, and a really unique way of just understanding how hard it is to even be a mom, become a mom.
And like the journey to even become a mom for you was already riddled with so many obstacles that like by the time you got there, you're like already had done all this work, and now the work of actually being a mom begins.
And I was really caught in this modality, this programming of being super mom. I've always been an entrepreneur. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. First kind of woman in my family to own her own business, and at the time when I was pregnant, I had a really successful e-commerce company. I've had like a million lives. And, I just thought doing, going, being all the things was what I was supposed to be doing. So I think I really injured myself early on in pregnancy and when I had my daughter, because I never stopped. I never took time off. I just kept working. And so it really was like leaning into the show, and then getting so exhausted from the show is when I finally and then turning 40. And then I finally just sort of woke up and I was like, what are you doing to yourself? So it's been a long road to even realize, I think for me personally, how to be a good mom. Most of which was just actually being good to myself, which I never allowed myself to do.
So like, did your spiritual path start during that, or was that already something that you had been developing for a while?
No, I was I think, same thing. If you had asked me back then, if I was going to be sitting here with you in my living room with my irritating chihuahua, talking about mushrooms and spirituality, I would have been like, yeah, right. I used to make fun of people who bought self-help books. I never did a single psychedelic in my life. Very just kind of by the book. No, like don't color outside the lines. And, it really was when I turned 40, like almost to the minute. And I turned 40 on the road. I did a show. I was in Columbus, Ohio, and I celebrated by doing a shot of wild turkey.
I went to college there.
Oh, nice. Well, you've probably been to I think it was the Funny Bone.
I know the Funny Bone.
So, I did on my 40th birthday, I was on stage doing a show, and then I went like in the back with the GM and the staff and like did a shot of wild turkey. And that was like my 40th birthday celebration. And then, I had others, and we had met up with some friends in Cleveland, on that same tour, because I did a show in Cleveland like the next night, and we all went out to dinner to celebrate my friend and my girlfriend's 40th birthdays. And I remember looking around and sitting around and looking at this fancy restaurant and all the food and like booze I had consumed and what I was wearing and what my whole mindset. And I just remembered thinking, I'm missing something. Like there's something more. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't even find the words. I just was like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. And it took, really, that's kind of the start. And then slowly I started allowing myself to explore what that yearning looked like. And I would say a few years after that, I started learning about shadow work and inner child, and I bought my first deck of oracle cards, and I did the
still hadn't done any psychedelics at that point. Though
no, I was studying them because they made a lot of sense. I remember reading about ayahuasca and being like, yeah, I get that. Like it totally like deeply resonated. But at the time I was like, there's no way. there's no way that I could do it. It's against my moral code. I think maybe I'm be a bad person if I did it. And then also, even if I did, how on earth am I going to leave my kid and go to the Amazon rainforest and for 3 months
and explain that to somebody?
Yeah. And especially when you have an only child too, I just think it's kind of a bad idea for one parent to just sort of disappear. I don't know. So I always just put it out of my mind. And then I've always loved mushrooms, all different kinds, forever. And anyone in my family would tell you that. I've been, obsessed with foraging. And I remember I went in 2018 and went and saw Paul Stamets speak when he came to Denver. I scalped a ticket. I was so desperate to listen to him talk.
That's awesome.
And even then I lapped up every word he said. And even then I was like, that sounds great, but not for me. So it was a long road. And I do think the medicine was absolutely laying its path for me, just little by little, chipping away at my old programming until one day I just said yes.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, because we obviously keep talking about it, what is Moms on Mushrooms?
So Moms on Mushrooms is really just a community and a online platform for mothers to not only learn about this sacred medicine, but to gather around with the medicine at the center. So when I started working with it, it became abundantly clear to me that this had arrived in this moment in history to help moms, and that moms have a unique experience navigating the world, because if you want to heal your own things, you have to do it in spurts. You've got to literally schedule in your healing. And then I knew I had this cachet of conversations and stories from women who had come to my show over the years. And I mean, my partner and I we'd go back to the hotel after performing, because we would, stand and take photos and talk to people after the shows, and we'd cry ourselves to sleep at some of the stories of these women. Just the loneliness, the heartbreak, the lack of support, the isolation. I mean, truly heartbreaking and shocking in this day and age. You think that people have more support. They feel that they're more connected, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So I just felt like there just needed to be a watering hole for mothers. And that's what Moms on Mushrooms is. So we offer really nourishing, nurturing 3.5-month courses for moms to create an intentional relationship around psilocybin, mainly microdosing. And I do that so that, again, you create a relationship around it before you go and maybe do a large dose journey, which I absolutely recommend. But I do think the modern American woman, the modern American mother, we don't have any context of what this medicine means. So take your time. So we have those courses, and we have some 101 read in the middle of the night courses just to answer questions through the lens of a mother. And then we have a private community that's kind of like Facebook for Moms on Shrooms, that any mom can join, whether you're an experienced psychonaut or you're just curious but still maybe horrified or terrified. You can kind of circle the pond, and there's just a beautiful space of nearly 1,000 women at this point just talking about medicine and how it's working in their lives.
Yeah. So was it scary for you? I mean, immediately attaching your name and face and saying, I'm a mom who does mushrooms. Were you not thinking beforehand, oh shit, this could go really bad?
I'm not saying never. I've rarely thought that this could go really bad. I'm gonna best case scenario that decision, in that I feel like I've had enough conversations with God and with the medicine to know that I'm protected. And I feel convicted enough in what I'm asked to do and the service that I'm asked to provide that it'll sort itself out. I also went through a period after that download of saying, no, thank you.
Not for me.
No, I was speaking with someone the other day, and I was remembering, I have a little corner of our guest bedroom downstairs where I go and meditate. And I remember being on the floor, face down on the floor, just being anyone but me. I can't do this. Why would I? How could I? But when I kind of decided, it was a pretty easy decision. It wasn't, and, I spoke about it with my husband, and there was a little kind of like crunchiness, like, what are the parents going to think at my daughter's school? And it just didn't really ever, I guess I had seen so much effectiveness and healing in the small groups that I had been leading, in the courses that I was taking and the stuff I was learning. It seemed so abundantly clear that it was such a good thing that it just didn't occur to me that anyone would think that it was bad.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just, ignorance, really.
Yeah. Have you gotten any hate or anything like that since you've started on mean comments, shit like that?
Yeah. Honestly, no.
That's awesome.
I mean, even in 2023, I went on Dr. Phil. Mm-hmm. And that was like the most psychedelic thing I'll ever do, have ever done.
Why is that?
Well, it was absolutely like a really bad trip. I don't know how else to describe it. It was just the whole thing. Like
I've seen the clips. I actually haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen a lot of clips.
You should.
I know. I need to.
The whole thing is pretty epic. And I will give them credit. They definitely set me up to be like the mom, the evil mother who does drugs, the mom on drugs. But I feel like they did a good job in edit, like given what they were planning on doing. I'm like not that sad about how it came out. I'm just sad about that I got set up, and sure, I probably should have seen that coming, but that's not how it was presented to me. But
Dr. Phil's always been a great guy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but even, that was probably like the most, that was the quintessential wake up on a Saturday. And I remember telling my husband, I go, it's kind of been quiet. Like, I'm not getting a lot of emails. Maybe no one saw it. And then I checked the spam and it was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, like for weeks. And then they turned around and they re-aired it 3 months later.
Okay.
And it was the same. And even with all of that, I think I can think of 3 emails which were kind of like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Or, and I remember one guy DM'd me on Instagram who didn't have a shirt on in his IG profile that said,
oh, no.
You shouldn't be talking to Dr. Phil like that, and you should wipe that smile off your face. And I was like, okay.
Okay,
thanks.
sir.
Delete. But that's, so really, truly, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We just don't. I'm so grateful.
That's really amazing. And I hate that I'm surprised by that. I really do. But I expect so little from people on the age of social media.
Yeah.
I truly do.
Yeah. And having kind of, had 2 businesses, that require it. I get it. I don't know how to explain it except that, I'm really lucky.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
So have you said the first thing that you read about was actually ayahuasca. Have you experienced ayahuasca yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So that's still in the mind?
Oh gosh, yes. And now I think with my teachers and my mentors and as I continue to learn, and I always say that I'm sort of like raised in the medicine woman way. So that's really my purview, is coming from the medicine woman way. Those are my mentors. I know that I'm just like calling in my teacher, and I just know when I know what, I'll go.
Yeah.
And so I'm just waiting.
That was experiencing ayahuasca was like my big awakening, and like the reason why I was like, I am going to start this, and I'm going to truly immerse myself into the world of psychedelics, because I loved them so much recreationally, and that helped build my relationship with them to then having more intention and truly like using them to heal and, be a better person, which then led me to ayahuasca, which was a very, very intentional, intense healing experience, which then led to all this.
Yeah.
And it's really, really amazing. But yeah, I had never heard of ayahuasca until it was at the beginning of 2020. And that was when I'd been using LSD and mushrooms for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
And then I first heard of ayahuasca on a podcast and was like, Oh shit. Like I think
this
that's
is
next.
for me.
I think I need to do that at some point.
Yeah.
And then it took 2.5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And part of me thinks I really love mushrooms. Like I did a journey once with my mentor, and I was lying on the floor in a puddle weeping, as you do. And
As one does.
I looked up at her and I go, I think I'm just put on this earth to take mushrooms, to eat mushrooms. And I stand by that, like all of it, whether it's portobello or, Amanita muscara. Like I
remember some trip that I was in one time where I was either mushrooms or LSD actually, but like I remember like I was just I was having a great time, but like I was just crying, like tears just running down my face, and my friends are like, "Are you okay?" And I look at them with like weepy eyes. I'm like, "I'm having the best time right now." Like I promise. It looks like I'm not, but I am. I swear to God.
I totally get that. Yeah, so I think they are absolutely like will always be my number one master plan teacher, and I know myself. Triple Aries, Enneagram 8, manifesting generator.
Triple Aries?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I know how I am with things, and I know how much I love to learn and like do deep dives. And I think the messages I'm getting is like, you're just getting started with the shrooms. Just, you've got the rest of your life to do the drugs. So I'm just slowing my roll, and I'm just focusing on mushrooms right now.
But you are taking a course on how to serve cacao.
That is my second master plant teacher, which just sort of showed up. And again, just another thing that just resonated. Like the minute I saw I don't even remember where I learned about it online, certainly, probably on Instagram. And I just I remember seeing a brick of cacao and being like, it called to me. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been working with it.
I honestly have no idea what like the benefits of cacao are, like why people do it, like how has it been used in ceremonies. So like, can you teach me some of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll teach you just a little bit. So cacao, first and foremost, is known as a heart opener. So it naturally complements most medicines, but really complements psilocybin. And it is chocolate in its purest, not purest because it's still processed into becoming cacao, but it's chocolate. So it actually, I know some people think it has caffeine, and it does have a small amount of caffeine, but it's actually theobromide that is the activator. So it's a different kind of activation than you would get from caffeine or from chocolate with sugar, because then you're relying on the sugar. From like a medicinal standpoint, cacao is really high in some great minerals, magnesium, potassium, antioxidants. And when you get good cacao in the brick or in the chocolate form, not in a powder, you're also getting the cacao butter. So you're getting all these healthy fats. So it's kind of like a meal in a cup. Yeah. And which I made you some. So you're probably tasting it. I made it kind of thick for us. So
it's delicious.
And it ceremonially has been used in the Mazatec, the Aztecs, a lot of different South American cultures. It has been used even medicinally to help with pain, to help women with birth, and then in ceremonies as well. And it really, it is its own magical plant teacher, with or without anything psychoactive added to it. And I find it to be really grounding, really nourishing. And I actually really like to drink most of my plant medicine, whether it's herbs.
Do you do mushroom tea a lot?
No, I do mushroom cacao.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I really like to drink my microdose. And I've experimented like the effect it has if I just take a capsule and swallow it down versus if I make a delicious, nourishing drink, preferably cacao, open up the capsule, put it in, stir it, and then take my time sipping it. It's like it comes into my body slower, and it's already its own little bit of ceremony. And I don't know, I just absorb it better. So it's a beautiful way on your off days to microdose, or just in general, it's just a beautiful way to have a really heart open meditation. And the more I work with it, the more I'm just like buzzing on cacao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious as far as like microdosing goes, because I'm I would consider myself like still fairly new to this part of using psilocybins and like that relationship with it. How, have you figured at this point, like what's the best like schedule on and off, like when to stop, when to go back on, and like all of that for you? Like, how's that experimentation process been?
So thank you for asking that. That was more of a personal, my own personal journey. And one thing that I've realized, and I thank cacao for this too, is I came to realize that I don't need a protocol. That so much of what I think microdosing in particular asks of us is to unlearn what it means to take medicine, to unlearn the allopathic model that has been shoved down our throats since birth, literally, and say, I trust what my body tells me. And everyone talks about a protocol, and I love, God bless James Fadiman and God bless Paul Stamets, but I just don't need another guy telling me how to take shrooms.
Yeah.
I really don't. And when I released myself from having to follow a protocol or even create my own and just trust my intuition, which is the number one thing that this medicine does. It literally decalcifies.
It shows us what we actually truly want underneath all of the programming and shit that we've been fed our entire lives. So like see our intuition. Like after my ayahuasca experience, I think that was the first time in my life that I was vividly like, oh, that's my intuition. Like,
right?
Oh shit.
And there it is. There he is. Yeah. And also it connects, we know now we kind of have two hearts, right? Like your gut is your actual first heart. And then your gut talks to this heart, and then things go to your brain. So when you connect your gut and your heart, your two hearts, and then those are connected and aligned, and then the messages that are sent up to your brain actually receives them from a heart space, not your brain creating it first and sending it down. Then it's really hard to ignore what your body and what your intuition is telling you, because it's coming from a completely different, cleaned up space.
Yeah.
And from there, if you listen, you will know when to take medicine and when not to. But that comes with also unlearning that you're a passive observer in this scenario. It's really creating that intentional practice. And I always say, like, know your why. Why did I make you cacao today? I was like so excited for you to come over, and I wanted to have a conversation around this beautiful medicine. That's my why. I shouldn't drink cacao every day if I'm just drinking it to drink it. You shouldn't do anything that way.
Yeah.
And certainly not microdosing. So if you know your why, if you're clear and you're intentional, and even if it's not like, okay, sit for 3.5 hours and beat a drum and do yoga, you don't have to do that. But at least you have to know why you're taking it that day.
Yeah.
But not because you think you should, or because someone else told you to do,
because
or
I'm
it's
on
your
a protocol,
fifth day, or
and
you're on a protocol.
Yeah.
Because your body and your hearts are saying yes. So that's my answer.
That's an amazing answer, truly, and something that through my time of microdosing, whenever I do, like that's the exact thing that I've come to as well. Like that's what works best for me is when I wake up and I'm like, I can clearly feel that, it feels like today is a good day for me to take it.
Right.
Like, it's just coming from like source or something like that. It's like, this is it. I know that this is the day that I need it. This is going to help me through my day.
Yeah. And I've cross-checked myself. I've taken it on days when I don't need to, just to be like flippant. And Sarah Hope, who's like one of my...
Who I met.
Yeah. Yes. We just danced together. She's an amazing mentor of mine. And she was just like, the medicine will always kick your ass. Like, the medicine will always tell you and if you're open to listening, if you're not doing right by it. And I believe that. Like, I've tried it. And you either feel nothing, and it's just like kind of a waste, which is a bummer. Or I like get ready for the ride today that you weren't asking for because you were arrogant and flippant about this medicine. Mm-hmm. And it happens every time.
Yeah. I mean, it's also especially recreationally, like if you're not fully like know why you're doing it. Like I have no problem with recreational use of psilocybin and other psychedelics, but like it's the, you know, taking it recreationally because there's nothing else to do. Like that's when it's going to kick your ass.
Yeah. I do get some pushback when I say I have no problem with people doing it recreationally. And I should say, I don't use psilocybin recreationally. Yeah. Hardly at all.
That makes one of us.
I think just, again, I'm a mom. It's not like I party a lot and I'm real busy right now. So like I'm sleeping. If I could be on shrooms, I'd rather sleep, you know? But you still have to know your why.
Yes, 100%. You still have to know your why. You still have to know the why.
And knowing your why of why you want to have a good time, why you want to party, why you want to celebrate, makes that celebration so much better.
So much better. Yeah. And
than
like
just being like, I need to get fucked up because I hate my life.
Yeah, exactly. And like even the same thing with alcohol too. It's like, I mean, I was certainly in this vicious cycle of drinking because that's what we do when there's nothing else to do.
Totally.
Whereas like now I don't drink as much, but like I still do drink. And when I drink though, I make sure that I have the intention behind it of like, I'm purposely I'm choosing to do this right now because I want to feel the effects and be more open and like socialize with my friends. Like that's perfect.
It is so true. I've had the same journey and then like finding gratitude in what you're drinking, you know, I can say I've probably, you know, never say never. Put me on a beach. I'll order a whatever weird drink they were serving because it's fun and silly. And
strawberry daiquiri pina colada.
Bahama Mama Chunky Monkey, whatever. But I was going to say that I've probably phased out like hard alcohol pretty much. I mean, I love bourbon though, but you know, they call it spirits for a reason. And I believe that. But like to know I'm going to drink wine tonight and know why, and then to find gratitude in the flavor and the cultivation that it took and how it enhances my food and how it makes me feel and how much less I need now because every sip is like a treat. It just makes it better actually. Yeah. Instead of just like, I need to get through that bottle as fast as humanly possible so I can make it to bedtime. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely just about the relationship that we have with different substances. And that's also different for everybody. And it's, you know, what I do appreciate about the protocols is like a lot of people truly have no idea where to start. Like they don't know what it feels like to listen to their intuition. So like it's a good jumping off point. Yes. But it's not the, you know, end all say all of how you should use any substance. Like it's all personal to each of us.
Although I will say you never want to do it 7 days a week.
Okay.
I would say 2 days off minimum per week.
Why is that?
Because I really do think integration days are important. Yeah. I think integration and you can feel it on a microdose. You can feel, and if we're gonna tout that microdosing helps us rewire our neural pathways and change habits, the only way you can rewire anything or change anything is to put it into action unaided. So you have you microdose for 3 days, you work through some things, you're noticing, you're observing yourself from a different vantage point, you're experiencing what it feels like to be less reactive or to be softer, to be more open-hearted. Great. But if you can't also pull that in without the aid of the medicine, then you're not actually changing anything.
Yeah, it's not actually getting hard-coded back in the way that you want it to. It's just staying in that weird open space.
Yeah, which is the difference between an SSRI, for example, and a microdose, because you're actually being asked again to not be a passive observer. Yeah. And so and then it's also asking you to pay attention to your life. Pay attention to the lessons you just learned those last 3 days.
Have you ever been on an SSRI like at any point? Okay.
Yeah. I was on Wellbutrin. I had to have a full hysterectomy when I was 41 to help alleviate some severe medical issues that I had, which put me into what's called surgical menopause, which means, menopause is usually a gradual, over the years, slowing down of hormones and different change in your body. I walked in with hormones and to the hospital, and I left the hospital without any. I left the hospital with hot flashes within 24 hours.
Damn.
And so my functional medicine doctor, you okay?
Yeah, we're good.
My functional medicine doctor wisely suggested that I go on Wellbutrin prior to the surgery to bridge that insane transition. And I'm so grateful. So grateful. But it really was that question mark of like, well, okay, thank God I'm on this, but now I don't even know, what did I miss? I'm glad I didn't have temper tantrum. I didn't freak out really. So I think it obviously helped, but then I was like, well, now what? Do I just stop, and what's on the other side? And do I want to find out? And so microdosing actually made a lot of sense to me as an option. So I have experience with both.
Okay. Gotcha. What did you like immediately when you were going off of Wellbutrin, like start like, okay, I'm going to microdose as I'm doing this, or like, did you have that gap of getting off of Wellbutrin and like trying to figure that out? I know people that have had a lot of trouble getting off of specifically Wellbutrin.
Oh, really? Yeah. I've heard the opposite. I mean, it's known to be one of the least, triple A's. I just quit cold turkey. I just stopped taking it.
Like, yeah, I'm done with this.
I'm done. If I find out, I find out. So I was fortunate that I didn't have a lot of side effects. I will also credit that to like, I was pretty deep into spiritual practice at that point. So I was meditating, I had a lot of things helping me out.
You were doing the things.
Yeah. And so I didn't notice that. And I know that is one of the benefits of Wellbutrin in particular. I have, a girlfriend who went off Zoloft, and she called me and she was like, why didn't my doctor tell me that I was going to feel the earth move under my feet trying to get off this poison?
Yeah.
Like, she was miserable. And that's pretty much what we deal with on a daily basis in Mom. Yeah. I would say 85 to 90% of the women who come to Mom are on one, if not several SSRIs and have no exit strategy.
What is the main reason that like a lot of moms, do you think, are even on SSRIs to begin with, just because that's how like the medical system treats moms is, you're anxious because you have a child and you're trying to be super mom and do all this. Here's just a drug to stop feeling these things.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I think the idea of the hysterical woman hasn't left our consciousness. And we don't know what to do with a woman who is in distress. And we don't like it as a culture. We want her to be quiet. I mean, it sounds extreme, but I do believe the root of the impetus behind medicating so many mothers is she just needs to be quiet. And I can back that up with hundreds and hundreds of stories from women that I've talked to that have basically been told they need to be quiet. And I think that we don't understand hormones or nutrition in the West.
Definitely not nutrition.
And we definitely not women's nutrition for women or men. Like we don't understand it. You're right. And so I think not understanding hormones and not having compassion for the intelligence of the female reproductive system and how it works itself out and how it creates life, births life, heals itself.
I mean, women too, like, I mean, the way that my understanding of the medical system is like, it's all essentially based on the man's body. And like a lot of that has to also do with like the man's circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour cycle, whereas women don't have a 24-hour cycle. You guys have a 30-day cycle or 28-day cycle, whatever it is. It's much longer. And so the fact that you're then treated in the same way of like, oh, every 24 hours your body goes through a natural reset, that's just actually not the case.
No, it's not. And we require different amounts of water and salt and potassium and magnesium and all the different things. So I think just ignoring those two things, and then you look at what actually happens to a woman's body after you give birth to a child. Just physiologically, period, is so intense. and you're just asked to leave the hospital, like sometimes 24 hours after you give birth. And if, you know, and if even if you feel like you're empowered and you have a home birth, there's just not a lot of deep knowledge. I mean, it's getting so much better, and it's way better now than it was 13 years ago when I had my daughter. And I wanted a doula in a home birth, and I ended up having an emergency C-section, and I almost had a stroke, and they put me on beta blockers. I was in the hospital for days and days. No one would talk to me. I was out of my mind. I was crying hysterically. I couldn't breastfeed. I had a hole in my stomach. My daughter was 3 weeks early. I'm sure I had postpartum terror, let alone, you know, depression.
Yeah.
And then I was like, finally, I remember stopping a doctor. They would just come in and just give me more pills. And I was like, are you afraid I'm going to have a stroke? Is that why I'm here? And they were like, yeah, we're concerned that you're going to have a stroke. And then just sent me home. And just sent me home. And then I had to go to the doctor like every 2 days to get checked my blood pressure. And I have a newborn I have to take care of.
Yeah.
Who's 3 weeks early. And so, you know, and again, I had tools. I have a really supportive, amazing husband who was able to take weeks off from work and stay home with me until I felt like I could even let him out of my sight because I was so terrified. Mm-hmm. But you go 1 inch off that scenario and I'm taking Zoloft while my hormones are surging
every which way,
oozing out my pores, mm-hmm. while my body is healing from trauma, mm-hmm. while I'm sleep deprived, mm-hmm. while my metabolism is on an 11 trying to produce milk to feed a human.
Yeah, it's also and then also try to regulate the emotions of a brand new child into this world.
My brain and my heart is trying to comprehend what just happened and how I can feel love that makes me want to die. It made me want to die, like, mm-hmm. looking at her. I was like, I don't deserve this. Yeah. Let alone, like, how am I capable of taking care of her? And then you just give someone Valium?
Yeah.
Like, that's your answer?
Yeah, all right, let's now numb all of these emotions and get them out of the way completely.
Obviously, you need to shut up. Yeah. You know? I mean, and so I think it just comes from that. It's laziness, it's bad science, it's patriarchy, mm-hmm. probably. And it's generations of women who haven't been taught their own health.
So what's your opinion, and this might be kind of a loaded question and a really broad one, so go whichever way you want, but like, of the medicalization of psilocybin?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I really struggle with it. I pray about it a lot. I think my gut, again, being raised by medicine women, is, well, first of all, it's not that hard to grow. Mm-hmm. It is accessible for a reason.
Stupidly easy to get.
Stupid easy. So just grow it.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about insurance, mm-hmm. or anything. Just grow it.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty in growing it because you're connected to it. You care about it. You are watching it grow. You are intimately, you learn about it. I mean, there's so much there, right? Mm-hmm.
But also, like, here's where I then go back and forth, is like, just the way that so many people are brought up in this society is like, they don't have time for any of that shit. Like, they've been told that they need to go do right. their entire lives, that like the idea of stopping to take the time to learn and grow about this thing because they have all these issues is like
totally
so out of this 100%. World that, like, where do I even start?
Right. So, okay, let's say it's medicalized. All right. Mm-hmm. One concern I have is that the spirit is taken out of the medicine, right? Yeah, the spirit,
because
the energy,
it's put into a fucking pill.
Because it's put into a pill. You could take pure psilocin, mm-hmm. that you grew and put it into a pill form, and I think the energy could be there.
Yeah.
What happens is the commodification and the slipping back, or the walking into, our commercialized medical model, which says we don't actually want people to heal with this, so mm-hmm. we're gonna fuck it up. Mm-hmm. We're gonna make it addictive. We're gonna add something else in there that no one's gonna know about, that's gonna make them crave it. so that they're dependent on it so that we can keep selling it, or we're going to make it less effective somehow because we can split, I don't know, the atoms or the DNA. I'm not a scientist, or the chemicals, and we're going to take the soul out of it.
Yeah.
So that it's essentially placebo with like a scooch for those of us who are like really, lightweight and can, absorb things quickly. Or we're going to add a bunch of other stuff in that's actually going to cause side effects that you're going to feel more comfortable with because you're told that all these pills that can heal you can also kill you, and you've accepted that contract in our medical system. And from there, we're screwed.
Yeah.
But I do believe that I don't think the medicine's going to let that happen. That sounds so woo, but I think that because it's easy to grow, and even if you don't grow it, your friend can grow it. And because it is a consciousness medicine, at some point, I do believe like, even if you take it out of desperation to get effed up, to like with no intentions, everything we just talked about against, not doing any of that, I still think it can open up your heart.
Yeah, it still has the ability to put you onto, or at least show you a glimpse of the right path.
Just a glimpse. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. It's hard to go back.
And that's the prayer, right? So can I stop the gross medical overlords from ruining this? No. Do I believe that we can rise above it? 100%.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most important pieces of, everything that's happening right now is the education piece. Like it's not the mushrooms themselves. It's not any of these specific psychedelics themselves. It's literally just the education surrounding it of here's how they are used. Here's how it is properly used. So people hopefully don't want to even enter into that model to begin with.
Yeah. And that's, it's a lot of what Mom does. We always say like, empower yourself with knowledge. And it's so funny. I was just listening to a Terrence McKenna talk like at 5 a.m. this morning. And he was talking, this must have been in the 90s. He was talking about how the internet is this great equalizer and this great connector. And I was like, oh, that's so quaint, Terrence McKenna. You had no idea what was coming. Like, that's so cute and like, like optimistic of you. But I was like, oh, he's right. Like you can learn. Like, it was the whole point. Like, remember when we were all excited because everyone was learning and had access to information? Like that.
Arrowwood.
Yeah, that still can happen. And I hope that we're turning a corner again from this passiveness of just like, feed it to me. I don't want to work on it.
How do you teach your daughter about like social media? Like, do you talk about it with her?
About social media?
Yeah,
that's an interesting question because speaking of passivity, because like I was explaining to her how I used to have to go to the library on weekends to do research for like papers in junior high. And she's just like, what? She just doesn't go to the library.
Yeah.
She goes to Google. So we're a reading family, so we encourage her to read a lot. We ask a lot of questions, a lot of why. And she's not on social media.
Yeah.
She has a Spotify account where she can make playlists. Like that's as social as she gets. And I don't see a time. I don't, she's 13. So.
But I just remember like that was the age, at least for me, where granted that it was still all really new back then. Like, everyone was getting their Facebook accounts was like right around that age. Obviously I don't fucking use Facebook anymore, but I use Instagram, which is the exact same thing. So like, I'm like, it feels kind of different, but it's not.
It's not. I'm with you. I haven't been on Facebook in years.
It's tough too, because obviously I'm growing this business mainly through Instagram. That's how people find me.
Well, that's the thing, right? So let's go back to Terrence's, like, it is an equalizer.
Yeah.
You can have information. The trick is we have to dial it back. We have to step away from it and we have to say, I want to engage. Like, not from a place of hate or fear or judgment, but I want to learn. And I want to use discernment. I want to understand that People can say shit that's not true. You know, I want to understand facts. I want to research.
I don't have to engage with everything that's there.
I don't have to engage with everything that's there. I don't have to believe everything that's there. Mm-hmm. You know, and that you can do your research. You can learn. And learning about what you put in your body, whether it's cacao or pizza or psilocybin, it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing for you to be aware of what you consume
and understand how it's going to affect you, and like simply just like feel how it's going to affect you. Like I'm now going through like this phase where like I definitely still like fast food. Like I'm not gonna pretend like I don't.
I love Taco Bell so much,
but like it's to the point now where, you know, when I'm thinking, I'm like, damn, that sounds really good. Like, it's like the taste of it, but now I can really feel like I know my body is going to feel really bad afterwards. And it's like, I'm not sure it doesn't outweigh it as much as it used to.
I allow myself Taco Bell once a year. Mm-hmm. Like halfway through my black bean Crunchwrap Supreme, I start to feel the joints in my fingers like swell up.
Everything is just inflamed.
Here we go.
Yep. This is why I don't do this anymore.
And no regrets. I inevitably eat it in my car. Like there's nothing cute about it. No. But you know, that's okay.
But again, it's like there's intention behind that. There is intention.
Because I love it so much. It's so good. I can't eat it though.
Well, on that note, I think we're gonna end it here. And before we officially do, how can people find you? Is there anything that you'd like to, any resources that you want to tell the world or anything like that?
Oh, thank you. So I'm not on Facebook. Instagram is at Moms on Mushrooms Official, but really everything is on momsonmushrooms.com. And we always have courses. You know, we're working to meet moms where they're at. So I would say, if you're curious about us at all, join our private membership. It's $2.22 a month. It's literally...
That's up there.
It's not even less than a latte. Like you can't even say the word latte without paying $2.22. No. So we consciously made it as affordable as we could while also weeding out trolls is basically the impetus for that price.
That's...
inside there we have integration circles, we have ceremony circles, we have Q&As with people working in the space. We've got tons of resources and we've got subgroups. We've got lots of stuff. So I'd say start there. Join. It's called The Grow. Join The Grow for $2.22 and then, you know, take a course with us if you feel called, or just follow us on social. I post when I remember and and that's all I got.
Well, thank you so much, Tracey. This has been really, really amazing. I'm very, very grateful that you let me into your home in order to do this. And
can we talk about my dog?
Absolutely. Jojo has been now on me pretty much this entire time.
She loves you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, Tracey. Thank you, everybody, for listening. For everybody who made it this far, I appreciate you. I love you. Hope you're having an amazing day. If you're not having an amazing day, I hope that this turns it around for you. Or maybe if you're having a shitty day, I hope that you feel all of that and don't try to get out of it and go through whatever process you need to go through in order to transform that and be at peace. Thank you again for listening. If you want to get in contact with me, feel free to just DM me on any social media platform. Or you can send me an email, which is tripsittingblog@gmail.com. Thank you again, and we'll see you next episode.